won out pretty hard.
Yeah, it looks really nice. Definitely a lot of top-tier picks, especially the Rise and the Aurelia coming through. You have a extremely solid bottom lane that you were able to target a lot of bans against. In terms of, you know, taking the supports off the table. You knew you were facing the Aphelios, and they have tools to deal with the Aphelios. If you have everybody just running at them, it's not necessarily good, but if you have hardcore backline dive like the Aurelia, plus some range, like a Jinx and a Rise, although the Rise is a little bit iffy, especially with the Orianna as well. But there will be options, at least, for Live Sandbox to handle that Aphelios, and it'll be interesting to see how this one comes down. I definitely do like this lane for Lava once again, and he has been one of the wild cards here for Fred at Brion that is getting a lot of their success going early on in the games.
Yeah, if Fate makes a small mistake or overextends, there's a lot of really strong pour for the Orianna post 6. I mean, it goes without saying that the power spike at 6 for these two is going to favor the Orianna because she can actually have kill pressure with the Viego. And even with Hoya, who could potentially rotate over, it's going to be a lot harder for him to do so into the Aurelia matchup, but you always have to respect that all-in power that Lava's going to have because he plays like that. He does trade aggressively, so he can look for those kill moments and opportunities. And we know Umpty likes to play around the mid lane, so definitely a way where if Lava starts to get a lead, Fate's relevance drops big time, and then you have a big amount of power before the Rise comes online. Love this Thresh skin.
Yeah, it's a cool one. Absolutely. We don't have any Scorchers in this game. That's a nice
No
sign.
Scorchers?
Only one Storm Gatherer. And another Water Walker.
Yeah. Like, looking at the rest of the runes, I'm like, yeah, nothing really stands out to me in terms of cool names that we could go.
One Ultimate Hunter. Used to be Ultimate Hunter was one. I remember that specific rune just in that tree. Even like the Ravenous Hunter, the Relentless Hunter, those used to be picked like all the time. But subsequent nerfs to the bottom side of that tree has definitely taken it down a couple tiers. And now you definitely see it, you know, focused on specific champions such as a Rumble or like a Karthus or something like that. If you are a champion that relies on your ultimate cooldown being as low as possible.
Yeah, definitely pretty good for those champions, as this early game is going to be pretty interesting to watch because, you know, you have, once this Aurelia starts to get her abilities online, it's level 3, it's not going to be very fun for Hoya, especially if he can hit the stuns like that every time. The mid lane is going to be, on the other hand, one where Lava should have a pretty significant advantage momentarily in terms of what he can do harass-wise. The bottom side of the map, you know, it's pretty even between the Aphelios and the Jinx. It's really about execution down there. Yeah. Summit, see what he ends up maxing first here, because we've seen a lot of variations here in the LCK. I think Q is starting to win out more often than the W that we started with.
And, yeah, even though the Rumble was on Vision, not able to do too much. Just going to trade the Scuttle Crabs here. Top lane will be totally fine. Summit getting pushed in a bit, but no problem. Aurelia extremely good at farming under turret pressure. So, can just hang around there, just mostly farming it out for now. And actually, Summit getting a little bit frisky, maybe a little bit too much, as Hoya is able to extend a nice trade onto him.
Yeah, this is actually looking really good for Hoya so far. In fact, going to force it back here for Summit. And that will be a teleport that comes.
Cancel it. Yeah.
Oh, that's massive. You actually can't do really anything here. You can't farm safely.
Yeah, because you don't have vision of your brush.
Yeah.
But seeing the Lee Sin back, he knows now that he is safe.
Yep. Well, Lee Sin backing there, it's actually kind of a bit of a bait in itself. I think that could have been played a little bit better, but either way, there's going to be a trade of backs here, so not too bad for Summit at the end of the day. Could have been a lot worse. Just backing in his face there was the go time, and then he delayed his own back, and they're going to meet in the middle. Hoya will not teleport, so he is going to hold his teleport advantage because he has plenty of time to return to the lane.
Yeah, was able to get a bit of a better back on this one. And mid lane going to go about as you would expect it. The Orianna eventually going to be pretty annoying for the Ryze. The Ryze pretty good at just trying to clear the waves and not do much else. Nice Dredgelang comes in, but it is Thresh, so we'll be denying the action. It's funny, in the past we used to have Tahm Kench and Thresh, but Tahm Kench was always the go-to for the guy who just has a no button, like a stop button, who would always just say like, okay, well, you don't get to engage on me because I have Devour. And it was always like Jinx Tahm Kench, or if you were in the case of Gen G, you would just go Ezreal Tahm Kench for the extreme safety. And it was effective because you basically just got free scaling.
Yeah.
Right? Unless they committed a hefty amount of resources. And Gen G as a team were always very well-rounded, so. Yeah,
and you know, it's a little bit more difficult to pull that off now in this meta, and in this patch, really, with the rework of Tahm Kench is where I'm really getting at. Now you do have, with this Nautilus, a lot of peeling power. It's just not quite the same. But also you're laning into a Jinx Thresh, so you don't feel like you need to be saved per se. But with the lane priority right now, it's a free Drake here for Live Sandbox. Between the mid lane and the bottom lane having a lot of extra control, it's going to lead to very nice start. And in a passive slow game like this, you know, getting a small advantage like this is all you can get. So it's a pretty huge one as a result. Okay, I'm going to come top.
Summit actually reading that very nicely. Sees the mist coming around the corner. He's like, nope, I do not want any part of this. Knowing that Hoya has flash, he could have immediately been kick flashed.
Yep, could have been insect to death there. As I like the respect. I'm not playing around the mid lane and the level 6 timing there for Lava, which is what we do often see in this matchup with the Orianna. Did actually use her Shock Blast or Shockwave to clear the minions as he's going in now.
This is a big moment, but Umpty's here and he plays right into it. Summit is Aurelia though, and look at this, even Effort's here, so they're just like, nah, yeah, we're not gonna do this onto an Aurelia that also has support. Aurelia definitely one of the champions that can turn 1v2s. You guys remember from earlier metas this year, like Renekton was always one of those ones that could do that, but Aurelia certainly is as well.
You really have to respect it. I actually really like Effort's roam here because you know that Umpty is probably still in the vicinity. You can actually kind of bait this out. You also know that Lava just backed, so there's a lot of things that can go well for you. You have Realm Warp in this moment. So if Reddit Breon actually really try to push the issue there and chase back, you have so much power. And if in that extended fight, if you end up winning out, you get so much control around the Rift Herald. It doesn't end up working out that way, but I do really appreciate the amount of resources they commit to Effort. Going up there, or rather they commit effort, those resources going up to the top side of the map because the reward is so high. And the con is Effort finds himself one level behind. Prince also picks up the slack, gets level 6 first, so there's a trade-off there. And now you head into this Rift Herald with a really nice amount of power, actually, as Live Sandbox. You would have had a little bit more if you end up getting that pick, but low risk, high reward plays like this are exactly what Effort likes to look for in the early game on so many different champions.
Absolutely. And, I mean, he's already got Swifties, so here he is in the mid lane again. Just going to join up with his team and Live Sandbox. I think they're just going to go back to what they do best. They have a really nice amount of scaling in this game, but they're like, well, we love fighting 5v5 for the Rift Herald. And we have pretty good setup here with the Krako. And look at this, it's going to run straight into it as Hoya. They had no idea.
Tombstone.
Not the singlest iota of any idea or any clue that they were in that river, and that was the simplest pick ever.
I mean, I think the one clue is that they were not bottom side, and there was only one place they would be heading to realistically is this Rift Herald, but when you don't have vision of that brush, you have to respect the fact that there could be someone in there, and if you don't, if you just walk as the crow flies, you're going to die. And
close one.
Yeah.
But he is okay.
Maybe a free Rift Herald here as a result of that nice hook. Quite literally a death sentence. Unsuspecting member of Reddit Breon, Hoya. And now you have a pretty massive lead in objectives. The next Drake is going to be spawning at a time where you can use a Rift Herald for advantage. And yeah, they leave Henna down here to get some extra farm, but you can actually rotate over here and still catch the majority of this wave, if not all of it. And so as Live Sandbox, you've got every advantage.
아 우리 안 칠 거야 안 칠 거야. 치면 안 되고 여기 보자.
We're not gonna lose.
자 이거 다 빠줄래? 다 빠줄래? 나이스. 야 이거는 빠져가지고 이거 가면 더 잘 봐야 되긴 해.
And so
칠래? 그럼 내려와봐.
it's like okay, just
빨리 내려가.
we're going down because Aphelios is still there, and we're just gonna give they're just gonna soul the Rift Herald to Kroko so that you can actually match that wave down there on the bottom side. Good shot calling here from Effort, and I like how he kind of doesn't actually tell his teammates. I guess the part of the Korean that might be lost for you guys here is that instead of like telling his teammates, he's kind of almost encouraging them while asking them.
Yeah.
I really like that style of shot calling because it makes it seem like you're not bossing your team around. You're making the right suggestion repeatedly, very quickly, and frantically. But it is a more calm style of shot calling. I think that really showcases Effort's leadership here as one of the younger veteran players here in the LCK.
Yeah. It's pretty cool to see. And I would always trust Effort on a champion like this. And, he was always one of our supports that had some of the best vision control that we had in the LCK. Failed a little bit in Game 2, noticeably. Maybe a little bit too focused on that assist. But either way, we know him for his incredible vision control and his ability to get picks on pick supports like this. So a great shot caller, and they're trying to set up here the Dragon. The Dredge line is immediately going to miss. A two-man play comes in, but the Death Sentence misses, and the damage is here for Breon. As trying to snipe down Effort, but they have the heal in place, as now Henna is going to have to flash and heal away as well. As okay, well,
that went wide.
Yikes. Nice try, but after that one does go wide. It does mean that Live Sandbox get the objective and they get away.
They get away for free, and you know, unfortunately, if the shockwave hits, actually, you can do a lot there. So you can't blame him for tossing that one out. And additionally, of course, it is going to be on a relatively low cooldown. It's not one of the long cooldown ultimates in the game, but it's very frustrating because they get away with doing this too without dropping the Herald before. They don't have to do anything to get this control, so they kind of just take that Drake and then go, okay, well, Herald opportunity for some extra gold. And they're just kind of vacuuming up all the objectives on the map right now. I don't know if we want to jump in right now.
Can we get the live picture-in-picture? They probably have it. Probably nothing's happening.
That was like perfectly cut screams or something. You know?
Yeah. By the way, the teleport in the top lane was denied.
Yeah.
Lee Sin Hoyo was able to get in there and stop that from going down.
That's pretty massive, but it doesn't end up, of course, you know, ending up being too impactful at the end of the day, but could have been huge if he does get down.
You see Lava's expecting them to walk forward, and that's why he throws out the shockwave there, but
Hoyo with a really nice reaction here, just instantly Dragon kicks him to interrupt. It actually gets the Vanguard's edge as well.
Bonus points.
And it looks like nothing happened up here, so have no fear.
Yeah.
Pay no attention to the skirmish behind the curtain.
Yeah. You know, it's funny, Live Sandbox, you think of them as a team that are ready to throw down at any moment in time. And there have been a lot of games where it has been decided, especially that Live Sandbox versus Afrika series that I think it was me and Chronicler that casted that one. So many games were just decided, like, who gets the Rift Herald at 8 minutes, and then it was just, like, over from there, even the crazy long game.
Yeah.
But they are also the team that have the slowest first blood in all of summer, which was almost 22 minutes alongside of DRX. And again, in this game, you know, they got that first blood, but let's say that Breon respected it and they decided not to fight and they backed away. We wouldn't have first blood and nobody would have died at 14 minutes. Not quite the case, as Summit is incredibly strong as well. You can see he's looking for it, but he's not actually going to commit, as there were a lot of pings. They don't know where Umpty is.
If Umpty is here and he actually gets a stun off, Hoya can easily safeguard away. So that's why, even though from our perspective that looks incredibly silly that he doesn't just Q him and kill him, but you have to be respectful of the fact that Umpty could be anywhere in the vicinity when you don't have any wards whatsoever. But this time he's not alone.
Oh man, and he lands the flawless duet, easily able to get that one going. Because it was a nice little flawless duet from him.
Yeah.
And
him and
Kroko.
Him and Kroko, yeah, they were the flawless duet there with the ultimate being tossed down there. The equalizer actually steals the kill away, but you're totally fine with that as Liv Sandbox. Having the Rumble get fed is just as dangerous for Frederibrion in this game as having the Aurelia get that money. She's already got her Blade of the Ruin King online, so she can make plays like this onto Hoya, who's going to really struggle to get away from her. She's very sticky now in situations like this, and you know what? They're just going to group up here on the top side of the map and maybe even look to threaten this inner turret. It's very early for that, but when you have this big of a wave and this much control, if they try to defend, you actually can wipe them. They don't have any vision right now, none whatsoever. So where's Rise? Look at the question mark pings going down, like, uh-oh, here we go.
Yeah, and Lava backed and is trying to get up here now, but 4 versus 2, and they know that other members of Frederibrion are still on the map. You can absolutely just stand here and whack the turret if that's what you want to go for, as here comes Viego. You can see they're like, okay, we got them off the turret, but it's not like anybody on the side of Liv Sandbox was in danger, as the 280 carries were basically just farming the entire time, so they're essentially non-factors.
Prince also gets the mid farm, so it's, you know, if you were looking at the Aphelios only, you might think, okay, well, you got a lot of extra gold there. Not really to be the case. Does have, of course, that turret advantage on the bottom side of the map, but Prince matches the farming in the mid lane. Still even on CS, and we talk about it all the time. A lot of the time in this meta, it's so focused on top-based objectives, the top Rift Herald, which often leads into the inner turret, so the AD carries just aren't relevant until the late game, so this is kind of how it is sometimes. Both AD carries are almost the exact CS. No kills, no assists on either of them, and they're just not part of the game yet. They're waiting until they get online.
Yeah. We have the Ocean Drake coming in here. There were 2 early Drakes yet again. 3rd game in a row, actually, in this series, where these Drakes are just so focused. And it makes sense with both of these teams. They love their early objectives, especially the Dragons. As is kind of a new thing for Liv Sandbox in round 2. But we are in round 2, so here we are. Fighting over this 3rd Drake at 16 minutes. Now trying to engage here, but that is a massive equalizer. So much value in the back line. Henna just melts to the Rumble and the Aurelia. Down he goes. And there was never a hope that he would survive there. And the rest of it is history. They follow up. Yes, the Aurelia will go down, but the job is already done. 3,000 damage for Summit, and they will also get the Dragon.
Yep, that's the 3rd Dragon for them. Looks like it's going to be a mid-turret. And 6 kills to 1 means this is a 3,000 gold lead here as the turret falls nearly between these 2 squads. And 3 dead means they're looking for more.
Yeah.
Look at the root poke, but oh man, this is starting to really look like a game that is not really recoverable for Frederibrion, because yes, they have decent engage tools, but what they don't have is the damage output that you're going to have between a Rise, a Rumble, and a Jinx. And unfortunately, when you have an Aurelia who can also side lane, but also flank for really strong engages, the Shockwave engage that you have, the kick potential, those kind of things, it's really hard to pull off when, in order to pull that off, you're actually putting yourself in harm's way. As this starts with Summit getting caught and ulted by Delight, and he's like, thank you for coming near me, because I'm going to Vanguard's Edge. The instant follow flash onto Umpty, it almost looked like he flashed first with how quick it was that he followed him over the wall. Lava's caught, there's no recourse here. You just can't afford to engage like that against a team that can turn so quickly.
Yeah. It's rough because, you know, you think about Frederibrion's comp, you have the Aphelios, they love when people just run at you, so stuff like Rise or like an Aurelia, stuff you can have a range advantage of. But if you're a Nautilus and you force a fight like that and you really string out the rest of your team to run straight into Rise and Jinx, who has front to back, and they're ahead,
yeah,
like, you know, those composition ideas from the earlier stages of the game, they kind of go out the window when we see the fight engaged upon like that. So
it was a bit of a miscalculation there from Delight in terms of what the follow-up is. Because on the other hand, you know, with this comp, even though it's an Aphelios comp, right, with that can sometimes give you a little bit of sustained damage, he has a lot of burst, and when you have the Shockwave and the Moonlight Vigil and Aphelios is in the right spot, if you do have an engage like what Delight had and you can actually kill the Aurelia instantly in that moment, it's amazing. It's a perfect engage. Then, how does Liv Sandbox actually survive the later parts of that? They don't have a great setup to keep their carries alive. But in this particular case, the disconnect, as you mentioned, the length between where the Nautilus is and the follow-up damage is so wide that Live Sandbox just can so quickly flip it with lightning fast reaction time. As upgraded boots coming in for Hoya and Umpty right now. Would have been nice to have those just a moment before, but this game is really starting to look, I don't want to say unwinnable, but the snowball is well and truly down the hill here for Live Sandbox.
Yeah, the Avalanche is getting going. I mean, 3-0 Jinx kind of reminds you of the first game we had tonight with Leo going 11-0 on Kai'Sa. If you didn't watch that one, definitely it was a pretty flashy game. Pretty flashy game.
If you didn't watch that one,
you can make your own decision about if you do. I mean, it was pretty impressive to see what he was able to do on the Fed Kai'Sa, because it doesn't happen all the time for Afrika. But yeah, I mean, we're kind of in a similar scenario, but also there's the Rumble and Aurelia and Ryze that are all quite fed as well in terms of not only kills but in CS as well. So it's definitely a large hill for Fred Brion to climb.
Yeah, it feels like it's the slope is getting steeper and steeper as well. Minute and 30 until Soul, which will be one of our fastest Souls that we've seen in quite some time, with how quickly Live Sandbox has just farmed these out in the speed run towards Soul. Also, the vision control they have over the map is immaculate, as you could see, just by taking a quick glance at even the red side of the map. So Baron threatened plays are something that you can start to do with the Jinx that's fed. Does just have the 2 items. So once the third comes online, the Infinity Edge, you know, something that could look towards here to really help solidify that clear time. But even still, this is a map that Fred Brion, like, if I wish we could actually just toggle their vision, because there's not a whole lot known for them right now, which means they have to play passively in the side lane. Lava's not going to try to push the issue there. You're having to deal with an Aurelia who has insane pushing power. And then if you collapse onto Summit, which is exactly what he wants, everybody rotates down, and it's an easy win for Live Sandbox. If you do nothing, then she pushes and you have Drake control. It's a lose-lose scenario here for Fred Brion.
Yeah. And the one thing you can do, you know, again, we saw that Live Sandbox was down like something ridiculous, like 13,000 gold in game number 2. And they were still able to find picks. Syndra's really good at that. There are some champions on the side of Fred Brion that have potential to do that, but a lot of it is kind of flashable, right? Like the Shockwave is a little bit predictable if it comes in, and as long as you have decent vision control, which they do, you should be able to avoid it. Other than that, the Dredge line or like a Lee Sin kick is another way. You know, Gravitum, Moonlight Vigil, potentially, but it's not quite as reliable as the Syndra was. And Live Sandbox, with the nameplates on, definitely a very strong team in the LCK, so you would expect a lot. And let's see how they handle this, as the ball is very annoying, and it will actually deny it. And there's the big kick, as Fate is going to go into that stopwatch immediately, super early on, as Summit, yes, he will get the 1 kill. He's looking for a little bit more, but he can't quite do it. Prince, still alive, is big, but he's all alone here, only has effort. And now we got Viego popping off in a big way. Look at this. Live Sandbox runs straight into the Shockwave. They lose so much on that fight as they do not get the Ocean Soul.
Almost every summoner for Live Sandbox is down here. 4 flashes are expired in this exchange, not to mention the 4 deaths that come with them. And, I mean, Valdez, you pointed it out right beforehand. You were like, there are ways to get a pick. There are ways to look for kills. The engage isn't consistent. But unfortunately, Live Sandbox walk into a position where they've vastly overextended. They look for hooks over the walls. They're playing this game like it's already over, and they end up getting punished. They're going to look for a turn here on this Baron, but they're so slow to get here.
And immediately, okay, let's see how many kills they can get on the backside of this, or who's actually going to kill who here, as even Fred and Brion are considering a turn. You can see a lot of damage is being done there as they kind of file in one by one. Not able to deny the Baron onto 5 people here. Fred and Brion are immediately back into the game.
Look at this positioning here for Live Sandbox with no vision over the wall. Like, it's easy for Lava to set this up. He instantly casts it, and Hoya's over the wall himself, gets the kick here, and then the fight's over.
And it was Infernum, Moonlight Vigil onto like 4 people in the back line. The amount of value they got out of that engage was absolutely ridiculous.
I mean, the alternative way, you know, I talked about how you can kill the Aurelia if she goes in, but if she's not actually starting the fight, if she's not the one that dives in first, you can kill everyone but the Aurelia, who's squishy in the back line if you have the perfect angle, you have the perfect shockwave, And once Ryze is out of the fight, so much of the damage you have to worry about as Frederick is gone. So you can just walk forward into this comp that has already kind of collapsed on top of you. They've closed the gap for you in terms of some of those melee carries doing the damage, right? The Viego and the Lee Sin. So Frederick, just with a snap of their fingers, it almost feels like, are back in this. They don't have an advantage by any means, but they stem the bleeding here quite significantly. They get a Baron buff, and Liv Sandbox are, you know, just one mistake away with that play from turning this game into kind of an easy-peasy solidified win. If they end up winning that fight, they play it a little bit slower, play around their vision a little bit better, get that Drake, that soul. I mean, they can then turn to the Baron themselves, but those deaths prolong this game quite significantly, and still ahead, still have a lot of side lane pressure, as you can see here. They're actually going to try to sneak this inner turret with the mid push happening. They'll trade turret for a turret.
Yeah. They also have Ocean Soul points, which, of course, those 3 dragons will remain for now. The turret's going to go down, but as you mentioned, this Baron push in the mid lane, pretty much unstoppable, so it's still a good trade for Liv Sandbox to trade 1-for-1 in this facet.
Yeah,
You're going up against Baron buff.
Yeah, if you can actually trade 1-for-1 when you have that huge Baron disadvantage, that is pretty massive for you, as we will see the back from Summit here. He's not going to be able to flank. He's going to use the equalizer defensively, not going to go on it. No wards for Summit, so he's going to have to walk around the edge here if he wants to engage.
Yeah. And it is predictable that Fred Brion stick around. They're going to be looking for as many inner turrets as possible. They get the second one up on the top side. It's going to be pretty big. You can see the gold difference now. Well, there is no difference. They're both at exactly 46,000. Fred and Brion get a little bit more with the wave that they clear. And yeah, I mean, this is just gigantic. Just with the snap of their fingers.
Yep.
Turn it into the 5v4. And from there, it was quite big.
Lava makes a big play. The follow-up is there from Hoya.
And I'm not really sure what this means for Liv Sandbox, right? Because after watching them play against a bunch of really strong teams, I mean, they were able to take down Genji, T1, Nongxin. This is the strongest of the strong here. And then they go up against Fred Brion, and I think you put it pretty well. You know, it's almost like they feel like the game is already over.
Yeah.
And yeah, they did have a pretty massive lead, which may lead you to believe that, but you still got to play it out correctly.
Honestly, I mean, I don't want to get too deep on this slot because we might have an engaged Lavas on the flank. I'll get into it in a moment, but the position here is still really good for Fred Brion to actually get their second Drake. And this feels oh so familiar. We're gonna have another 4 Ocean Soul, 4 Ocean Drake, Ocean Soul here.
Yeah.
It's totally possible. As Summit's looking for an angle here. This fight might decide this game, to be honest. If Fred Brion take it, they're gonna have such a nice lead. If Liv Sandbox take it, they can actually take back control. And there's so much power for them here. This is gonna be such a huge turning point for either team.
So teleports are coming in. You see that Fred Brion all get here as a 5. Liv Sandbox are waiting for Ryze. And it's the same position. And the ball is quite literally in the exact same spot.
Yeah, this time Hoya doesn't have the follow-up kick necessarily.
And Fred Brion play it so well because they just keep the Ryze and the Aurelia at distance. That's what you got to do. Liv Sandbox got to pull the trigger, and they do. They get the Ocean Soul. And they back away. They do not commit to it. They actually do enough to push them off of the objective. Summit is going to be the sacrifice, but he will try to fight for this one as the Lantern comes in, but no, denied by Lava. That was pretty cool as he gets out of that Lantern with the Shockwave, but still the Ocean Soul to Liv Sandbox.
There's not enough time for Fred Brion to get any realistic objectives on the map here with that pick, unfortunately. It's big money when you get that kill on the Summit, but the big win is the Soul, as you mentioned. And in this fight, the focus is going to be on Summit. They're playing around and they're kiting back super well. And he comes in here with the Vanguard's Edge, and look at how well everyone kites. It's a great amount of pressure, though, that's relieved, so they are able to take this Drake. It's the Equalizer and, of course, the Vanguard's Edge that give them that power to guarantee the smite, as I wanted to see what happened with Summit's flash there, but I guess we'll never know. Because he did use it, but, of course, was followed upon there and killed by Lava.
Just dragged out of the Lantern, as you do.
Baron's up now, but obviously so is Summit, so that's the window I was talking about that you kind of miss.
And Fate ran all the way from base to that last dragon, so he actually holds on to his teleport, whereas Fred Brion used both teleports very early to set up a position, yet they still lost the Drake. And so Fate definitely going to be able to use that teleport advantage to put some pressure on in the bottom lane here.
Yep, doesn't stick around too long without any vision here on the top of the jungle, you know, just to the left of Hoya on the red side there. So they don't actually want to push the issue too far, and they can't start the Baron just yet either. So does end up being a little bit of extra pressure, and he's just going to kind of back, wait for the wave, and continue to do the same thing. He's farming super hard. And I wonder, as Fred Brion now, you know, if that last engage we saw where we did see the shock blast, or shock wave, so I'm casting a lot of Jace recently.
Now he's banned every game, so you're safe now.
The shockwave into the kick there from Hoya, that was a miracle engagement. It was also a small mistake from Liv Sandbox, but do you get that miracle engage twice? Because without it, Fred Brion have really struggled. This is the death sentence.
Well, here we go. That should be enough. Stopwatch, though. It's going to be very big, and it will actually save his life. That's part of why it is the best item in the game, in my personal opinion.
It is pretty good. It is has some of the most high potential value you'll ever see in a single item.
Only 650.
It's a steal.
Yeah. It used to be like, what was it, like 10 minutes as a rune, and also it was only like 600.
Yeah.
Good times, good times.
This is a... I don't think they have the clear time to do this, to be honest, for Brion. But they're going to look for the turn.
They do have really nice turn, and if Liv Sandbox run at them, they do have the potential. There it is. The shockwave comes in, and down goes Effort. Fate is kiting it out pretty well as Summit is here, but the Jinx cannot get any value damage as Summit is going crazy. Gets so many low health bars here, and the equalizer will be enough. And look at Prince. He's still full health here. He's going to have a frontline delight. Tries to catch up to him, but he can't quite do it. And that will be enough for Liv Sandbox. They wipe them, and they should be able to wipe this game.
Very well played here. There's the Realm Warp towards the top lane to end it all. But you have to look at the Aurelia once again. Does so much frontlining here. The Prince is at full health, right? That was the thing. They ended up looking for one pick. They got the Thresh. They didn't get the Jinx. If you get the Jinx there, totally different story. They blew up the wrong target. And that's going to be the game. Really nice turnaround here for Liv Sandbox. It didn't feel like it had to necessarily be a bit of a turnaround. Didn't feel like it necessarily had to be this much map control going to Fred Brion, but a few small mistakes gave Fred Brion the chance to maybe come back. Liv Sandbox will take this series 2-1. But going back to the question you posed earlier,